TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop. Come on, take me higher. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Noah.
My name is Ryan.
This is Balls and Bowties podcast, your weekly show to talk about all sports and all things with basketballs, footballs right now, maybe baseball eventually. NBL playoffs this year. We want to thank our sponsors. First, WagerWire. If you haven't downloaded it, why not? It's free. Puts all your bets together so you know exactly what you're betting on each app. It makes you a superior sports bettor. Viva Tequila Seltzer. We are cuckoo for coconuts on the East Coast here. So go get wherever you get your adult beverages, go ask for Viva and ask them if they don't have it. Why not? And our last sponsor, Atlanta Steaks and Seafoods, the best meat quality, all of the above. If you're looking for somewhere to get your steaks and your seafoods, go ahead and go to Atlanta Steaks and Seafoods Facebook page or AtlantaSteaksandSeafoods.com to get your product. Well, college football was a whirlwind.
Indeed.
We saw Alabama take down Georgia pretty handedly. Obviously, there was a little bit of a comeback. I'll give Georgia the credit. They figured it out the second half. But like we said, Alabama's high-flying offense, they could not keep up with it. They could not. Milroe was an absolute beast. He jumped from 7-1 in the MVP odds to plus 150 at halftime and back down to like plus 300 now, plus 3-1. Ricky Williams, I mean, he's having statistically just as good as a year as Devontae Smith when he was as high as been, is what I saw today. He has 5 touchdowns, 400 yards, 16 catches. Alabama was absolutely dominant in that win. And then K-State early on that day destroys Oklahoma State. Takes a big lead. Yeah, that was a big one. Like you said, the Big 12, we didn't really know what to expect coming in this year. They take a 42-20 win with Giddens 187 rushing yards. Absolutely killed on the ground. And Avery Johnson did his thing with almost 300 passing yards in the air too. And then, of course, Notre Dame finally wins a big matchup and wins a matchup they should win in the first place.
Absolutely.
Versus Louisville with 31-24. And another game that looks like it could have been a blowout, but came back together and ended up being a closer game than most expected. And then to finish out the night, Penn State, New Illinois, 7-7.5. Penn State's offense finally figures it out, and they win the game 21-7. And one surprising game, we had Miami, who, everybody's been seeing how great they've been this year. Cam Ward, a big part of that. Only sneaks out a 4-point victory versus Virginia Tech on Friday night. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond this week in their matchup. Week 6 coming up, 5 weeks to the season. We're starting to see some continuity in teams and how they're playing. We're seeing consistency in a lot of the teams and their performances, and that we're starting to kind of figure out who's going to be the playoffs, who's not. Obviously, Alabama takes number 1 seed.
Yeah, they made a jump from 5-1.
Huge win. Texas, with Archie Manning still playing, goes number 2, not because they lost, but Alabama was that good. You can't not put Alabama there. And then you kind of have everybody else. And what it feels like, maybe Ohio State at 3 is those top three teams are absolutely dominant, and you can't argue that. Even Tennessee at 4 is close. I would say those 4 teams are the absolute dominant top 4.
I still wouldn't give Tennessee the edge over Georgia, just because you saw the way Georgia was able to battle back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't take them out of the race for top 4 spots, but I mean, they're still going to make it in no matter what, especially with the new 12-team system. But I still think for the rankings right now, I still think they're still deserving of the 4th spot. No discredit to Tennessee, though. They're a great team.
Yeah, it's hard with Tennessee right now. They haven't played in Alabama, Georgia, one of those top couple teams to solidify their spot.
Yeah.
Like Alabama and Georgia did. They played each other.
Exactly.
Everybody kind of knows where they're at now, and it's easier to tell. Same thing with Texas. They haven't really played a whole lot. They played Michigan, which is a huge one, but Michigan's obviously not as good as we've seen this year.
Yeah.
So that does play into a little bit of factor. We're going to get to this week's games, though, starting with Missouri, Texas A&M. What do you got for that breakdown?
Missouri, Texas A&M. As we see, Mizzou they're starting to pick things back up. They had a little bump in the road earlier in the week, or not early in the week, but earlier in the season. So we're just seeing them pick back up steam, getting that pass game going. We should expect Luther Burden to have a big week, and Theo Weiss to have a big week as well. Texas A&M, they're coming in right at 25. Even though this is a 9-25 matchup, definitely see a close game just because of Mizzou's inconsistently offensively. And even they have one of the better defenses in the country. Can't say the best, but defensively, they struggle. They always struggle to start the game, but they're very consistent in finishing the game well. So key for them key for the defense really is to start well and finish well. Offensively, get consistent and just work the ball.
Yeah, we see Mizzou coming off their last game versus Vanderbilt in a double overtime win. A game they shouldn't have been that close.
Not at all.
They still get that top 10 ranking, which is they're well deserving of the way they play the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But where we see how that affects the spread, the over-unders, they're +2 against the spread in this game. Coming in as the 14 rankings higher, they're not the spread favorite, which makes you wonder how much of it is the book saying that game mattered, right? Are they saying that Mizzou is maybe not as good as people think because of that win? Or are they trying to pull people to, be like, look, they just had a tough loss. Go take that money, and then push the line as soon as the game starts. It's to be hard to tell. But I would say with Texas A&M's lack of passing game right now, it's hard to say that they're going to be able to, keep up with Mizzou offensively.
Absolutely.
With the weapons that Mizzou has. I mean, even with just their one 5-star wide receiver, he can do it all.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. It's going to be tough for me to say that Texas A&M is going to win this game, even though their defense is that good. To me, they haven't played, other than Notre Dame, they haven't played anybody good enough to solidify them being a -2 favorite versus Missouri.
Absolutely. I see Mizzou pulling out the win. But like I said earlier, I think it's still going to be a close matchup just because Mizzou's inconsistency and, like you were just mentioning, Texas A&M, their secondary is good. It's a lot more consistent than Mizzou's secondary, at least as far as the whole game goes. But I think Mizzou is going to have a bounce back week. And I don't see this game going into overtime. But I understand why the spread is +2, just because of the inconsistency. So I think, like you said earlier, they're just trying to get that money grab right now, and then push the lines back up to where they actually believe it'll be, which is what I think it'll be, more of a 6.5. So
yeah, it's probably properly rated. I think Mizzou probably pulls it out. I think Texas A&M has a great defense, but their lack of offense is going to be a key part. Like we've seen with Alabama, Georgia, offense always outplays defense in college football.
Yeah.
NFL, totally different story. But right now, if you're in college football and you can score the ball, you are very well off. We're going to move on to our next game, Iowa versus Ohio State. Another one of those teams that we talked about. Ohio State being one of those top, couple teams, top 5 teams, is kind of what we gave them that, are absolutely dominant, and then there's everybody else.
Yeah.
But they're coming into a game versus Iowa, who consistently plays good defense through every year. That's what they built their whole team on, is we're going to play good defense and make you, beat us by scoring 10 points or 17 points.
Absolutely.
What do you see in this game?
I don't see it being close. No discredit to Iowa's defense, but Ohio State is always one of those juggernaut teams. And right now they have 2 receivers in the freshman and I can't pronounce his name. Can't pronounce his name. I'm not going to try. But they got 2 great receivers out there, so it makes it easy to spread the ball and share the love. But I just don't see Iowa State's secondary being able to hold them to like that normal 10-point game. I don't see it being a complete blowout, but I at least see it being a 2-touchdown score game.
Yeah, the spread's at 20.5 for this game. Over under is 42. So they're projecting basically a 30-10 game.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Iowa's running back, Jonathan, has 9 touchdowns on the year. He is an absolute workhorse, 685 yards on the year for Johnson. He's absolutely dominant, but the lack of pass game is too evident for me. And I just don't think there's a defense, even with how stacked Iowa's defense is, I don't think there's a defense that can really hold down this Ohio State team.
Absolutely.
With just the amount of weapons they have. I don't think Will Howard performed the way he's expected to or should, but I think they have way more potential especially with their freshman Smith, who is an absolute dog out there.
Yeah.
He's going to be a big weapon for them, and I don't think they have a corner to slow him down. So it's going to be Ohio State. I mean, the 23.5 is a large spread for me, especially for an Iowa team that's defensive oriented. But we're talking about probably a 1 or 2 offense in the league. So I would take Ohio State, or I would take Ohio State. I probably wouldn't even touch the spread or the over/under. It's just probably not a game I'm not touching it. I'm just going to put that Ohio State in there for a huge parlay, just to add some more money on it. Why not?
Absolutely.
Then the last game of the week that we're going to talk about, Tennessee, Arkansas. Number 4 ranked Tennessee has been absolutely dominant in every game they've played. Beat Oklahoma for their biggest win of the year last week, or 2 weeks, or the last game they played, we'll say that. And now they're coming to a game versus Arkansas, who's not ranked. However, offensively is another top team in the nation. You can't argue with their running back who has 9 touchdowns himself. This one's going to be a high-scoring game, but how do you see this going?
Honestly, I see this being a dogfight. Even though Arkansas isn't ranked, I definitely see them on the bubble of that 25 ranking. I think Texas A&M and Arkansas, either one of them could be 25. But I see it being a back and forth game. I see Tennessee pulling it out just because of the dominance in their offense with Nico and just his offensive weapons around him. They're making him look good, and then he's making them look even better.
Mm-hmm.
So they have been really consistent within their offense this year. You haven't seen too many crucial turnovers, or you haven't seen too many turnovers in general with them. So, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, Arkansas has played pretty close with 2 top teams this year. Texas A&M last week, they lost by just 4 points. And then very early on in the year, they almost upset Oklahoma State, even though we just saw Oklahoma State with a big, L. It probably doesn't mean as much. But Arkansas is keeping up with these top teams. Now, like you said, Tennessee is a top 5 team in the nation. Those top 5 are absolutely dominant. I don't know if there's anybody outside of those top 5 that can beat up on those 5 or at least stay close.
Yeah.
Arkansas is going to put up points. This over/under of this game is 60.5. I mean, that's not doesn't speak college football in a number, then what does? That's what it's become. You have to shoot out the other team. Now, what we have seen, though, in Tennessee, especially in the Oklahoma game, is they beat them defensively.
Yeah.
They only gave up 16 or 15 points, which means, they're not trying to beat you. They can beat you throwing the ball and scoring points, but they also can beat you defensively.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting. to see that number could be super short or it could be super low. You don't really know depending on what Tennessee team comes up.
Yeah.
But I would say there's no way Tennessee even drops this game.
Yeah. I want to say I'd be surprised that they drop it, but at the same time, I wouldn't, just because of how scrappy Arkansas is. And like you were just mentioning, they've been holding these top 25 teams to less than 10 points. So that's the other reason why I say it's going to be a close game. 60.5 is a stretch for me. Because, I mean, both of these defenses are pretty defensively sound, and they're both very well coached. 60.5 is a little bit high for me. I see more of like a 45-50 ballpark somewhere in there. But yeah.
All right, college football, that wraps it up for us. We're going to go to commercial break, talk about the NFL. We'll go to one more commercial break and finish with the MLB playoffs on today's show.
TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
And we're back. Now on to the NFL. Our recap for our NFL games. As we saw, Chiefs-Chargers. Chiefs squeak out a win against those Chargers with a major loss to Rashee Rice. So we'll see how they bounce back playing the Saints this week. Very good team overall. So we'll see how that goes. And then we have Ravens-Bills. That was a game. We were expecting it to be a lot closer, but the Ravens kind of showed their dominance and just showed, even though they might have had a rough week last week, they still showed that they are one of the top teams, if not the top team in the NFL. And then a surprising game, the Lions-Seahawks. Seahawks still aren't really able to show that they are one of those teams to be reckoned with. They played a very defensive sound Lions team, who honestly I thought the Lions were going to win by a lot more. Just from their playoff run last year and going into this year, you'd think they'd be a lot better. And that's no discredit to the Seahawks, who offensively they did great. It's just the game of possessions, and they missed one or two possessions, and yeah, that's pretty much what it was. But moving on, games for this week: Buccaneers-Falcons. What do you see?
Yeah, Thursday night football. One of the better Thursday night football games we've seen this year, obviously, except for the first game where it's going to be stacked either way.
Mm-hmm.
Buccaneers have been hot. We saw them last week versus the Eagles beat a huge win. Moved to 3-1. Now they're going to face a Falcons team that's 2-2, but a lot better than their 2-2 record shows. I think Kirk Cousins is getting kind of used to this offense and how he can play inside of it. Bijan is exploding in the run game.
Yeah.
We're going to probably see Kyle Pitts get more involved offensively. Then that defense for the Falcons is tough. So this one's going to be a lot closer than people probably presume. If you look at just the numbers, Buccaneers have blown out teams, but I don't see this being a blowout.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I really have the Falcons winning. Like you said, even their 2-2 record really doesn't give them enough credit for the Buccaneers 3-1 record. Falcons are a very well put together team. Offensively and defensively, they're very sound. They're very detail oriented. So, like you were saying with Kirk Cousins, he's finally finding that rhythm within the offense. Kyle Pitts, we definitely should see him getting a lot more touches this week. The Buccaneers defense, I really don't see them being able to contain both Bijan and Kyle at the same time. So whether that is Bijan just ramming it right up the middle, or if that's him going to wide out, or not wide out. That's him going into the flat, catching short passes all game. But I definitely see Falcons pulling this one away.
Yeah, I think Tampa Bay will win this game. I think they have a slight edge offensively because they're more consistent. I think when you have Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, it obviously helps. But I think with the struggles we have seen from Kirk Erlon just make me a little nervous, especially with not getting one of their top guys, Kyle Pitts, involved. Drake London's not been the guy we thought he could be this year. Mooney is their top receiver, which is not a bad receiver, but if he's your top receiver in yards, you're probably not doing too hot. It's going to be a lot closer defensively, right? The spread's 42.5 for the over/under, and I see it being more defensive game than that.
Absolutely, yeah. Moving on, going overseas here, we're going to London with the Jets and the Vikings. What do you see?
Man, this game is going to be interesting. We see a 4-0 Minnesota Vikings team, which who would have thought coming into the season we've seen 4-0.
Man.
Plus the Jets team who just came off a tough loss to the Broncos. They're looking to bounce back. They're hungry for a win.
Yeah.
This could be this perfect storm to knock off Minnesota off their undefeated season. And I think it probably will be. Now, the hard part is Aaron Rodgers is a little banged up. Now he's got to travel. I mean, it's probably 16, 17 hours on a plane to play in a different country. How does that affect him? Probably see a lot more handing out the ball for the Jets.
Yeah.
But if you're the Vikings, just keep getting the ball to your playmakers. Let Jefferson make plays. Let Jones make plays. And Sam Darnold can just keep dumping off you. Once you throw the deep ball, they've had no struggles with that either. So I just don't see Minnesota's defense holding up as well as we've seen, and that's why they've won so many games.
Yeah. I actually am going with the Vikings on this one. Even though the defense may not be able to hold as well, with that Rodgers being banged up and them having to go to the run game more often, I think that they'll be able to tire him out more, tire out the running back more. But also I think pass coverage wise, since Aaron's a little banged up, that defensive line is going to get to him easier, unless the Jets' offensive line is just amazing this week and he's able to stand in the pocket forever and pass the ball. But yeah, and then as far as the Vikings offense, like you were saying, keep getting Jefferson the ball and keep getting Jones the ball. Those are your two key guys right now who are making the majority of your plays and really getting you guys these wins. So.
Yeah, what we're seeing is going to be the battle of that front four for each side. You got to win in the mud, is what they say, and that's going to be the difference, right? If their D-line, who for the Vikings has 17 sacks, Jets have given up 10, which is some of the most in the leagues on both sides.
Yeah.
So it's going to be the key who can win that battle. And really, for the Jets, they have to get Wilson going. They haven't got him really going all year. It feels like he's been consistently pretty good and okay, but there's not been a breakout game like we expected when Aaron Rodgers came back. So that's what I picked the Jets. It's also London. There's so much, you never know.
Yeah.
Your schedule's thrown off, your preparation's thrown off. I mean, everything is out the window at this point. So expect a wild one there. I bet those lines, the spreads, those over-unders, all the team totals, those are going to be way off because nobody is in their normal preparation. So that'd be the game to bet on if you're looking for a freak game to look at.
Absolutely. Now we're going to move on to the Chiefs Saints. What do you see there?
Yeah, the Chiefs 4-0. They haven't really dominated a team. They won last week versus the Chargers. Justin Herbert ended up playing, so it made it a little closer than it probably would have been, obviously, without him.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen a dominant win, and with Rice out, now we're seeing less and less weapons for Mahomes to get going. It kind of felt like when we saw Kelce get going as soon as Rice come out, so we can kind of confirm that they were probably playing a little soft with him to start the year to try to keep him healthy, so that way at the end of the year they can push him. They don't have that option now.
Absolutely.
He's going to have to get a lot of production, especially with Checo out too. I mean, you just have so many injuries. But the Saints coming off 2 straight losses after beating their teams by 30 plus the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They need a victory desperately. But going into Arrowhead, it's never easy.
Yeah. Like you were just saying with Travis getting started, I honestly, after the first 2 or 3 games, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking they were kind of just playing it easy with him just to save him for the postseason. But like, as you just said, they have no choice anymore. So he's got to be their number one option. As we've seen before, it's a great duo. It's nobody can really stop them. They can contain them, but even then, still the Chiefs have weapons. So I think we're going to see Juju may have a big week this week, just because you got Rice down, so you have to have that next receiver up mentality. But then, like you said, the Saints coming off these 2 losses, I think they're going to be coming in very hungry, just to get a win. Not even just looking postseason wise, just for some team morale. So I see it being a closer game, just because all these games with the Chiefs have been close. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if it is a blowout, just because Chiefs defensively, very defensive sound. They've been the ones really keeping the Chiefs in the games, allowing Pat to finally get it together after throwing an interception in every single game after the first game of the season. So, yeah, I see Chiefs pulling this one out.
Yeah, this is going to be a telling game, right? The first 2 games, Derek Carr looked like, the best quarterback we've seen since, Joe Montana. And a lot of that was the production downfield. He wasn't throwing for the attempts. He only had 23 in his first game and 16 in the second game. He's just throwing the ball downfield. They're having big plays, and every single time they touch the ball, and him and Kamara. And then these last 2 games, now the defense is sitting back and saying, all right, go ahead and beat us, and he can't, right? That's what we've known of Derek Carr his whole career. Now the Chiefs are going to have to do the same thing, but can Derek Carr figure out how to get his weapons involved in the short game, the short pass game, and the short run game for Kamara and probably Chris Olave as their number 1 receiver? I don't think they figure out this fast, and not versus the Chiefs. They're just too good of a team to finally figure it out for me. I think you have to have a tough, an easy team that you can kind of walk into and try some things to get it figured out. And obviously with the Chiefs in Arrowhead on a Monday night game, you're not going to be able to walk in there and just be like, all right, I'm going to come in here and do this, see if that works. Oh, that doesn't work. No, you have to be on your A game from the first snap to the last snap.
Yeah, and I think Spags, he's been doing a great job really disguising the main defensive concept. He's been playing a lot of shadows. So I think that's going to be another problem for Carr as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say expect an interception. So, but moving on, Ravens Bengals, going to go through this quick. So what do you see?
Yeah, 2 teams that we've seen really struggle in this beginning of the year. Obviously not last week with the Ravens. I'll give them that. They did not struggle at all. But record-wise, you see I think 1-3 Cincinnati and 2-2 Baltimore. Yeah. And they haven't even touched their divisional. Obviously, this is the first divisional round. You still have the Steelers, who are not undefeated anymore, but 3-1, they're going to be a tough team, especially with their defense. Like, these teams got to battle through their division before they even get to everything else.
Yeah.
And they've already struggled versus every other conference, every other division. Mm-hmm. Most likely, one of these teams doesn't make the playoffs. It's looking like Cincinnati with how well the Bengals or how well the Ravens performed.
Yeah.
But you can't count out Joe Burrow. I think when he's playing well, he's the 3rd best quarterback in the league by far.
Yeah. I see the Ravens taking this game. You can't stop Derrick Henry. That's let's put that out there first. Derrick Henry cannot be stopped. And then on top of that, you got Lamar. So you basically have 2 running backs and a quarterback. I'd count him as 2 people just because he can run the ball as well as he can throw it. But you see Isaiah Likely, he's coming into his own. Lamar's getting him a lot more touches. So that makes the passing threat very big as well. And as you've seen, the Bengals secondary struggled a lot, just being able to contain the pass game. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Ravens, what we've seen struggle in the first 2 games, they've kind of fixed a little bit. The Cowboys next week and definitely fixed versus the Bills this week was their offensive line issues with their penalties, right? They were the first most ranked penalized team coming this week with 31. A lot of that was the offensive line. I won't say all of it, obviously, but a lot of that was. And they've seemed to figure out the problems. Obviously, we know, at the beginning of the year, the rest focus on certain things. One of them was the formation, where you have to be lined up equally. Yeah, we saw that the very first game, but even through the second and the third game.
Yeah.
They picked that up the fourth game, didn't have a single one. And then their secondary, they gave up so many points in those first 2 weeks, and they just struggled without their key pieces that they lost throughout this offseason. And now they seem to have figured it out. To me, it might be a little too early to figure it out, but they don't have a choice. When you start 0-2, you have to figure it out early.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the
Especially
Ravens
if you want to play.
probably take this one and then push for the Steelers for that division. But the Steelers don't look like they're going to give up, especially if they get any offense going. That Steelers team is dangerous.
Yeah.
Any offense.
I was gonna say once they start rolling, then it's like a snowball effect. Offense translates to the defense, even though
Yeah.
their defense isn't the best. When their offense gets going, it boosts the morale for the defense to get more stops, so they can go see them score again. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be a hard fought battle in that division. And like you were saying with the Steelers and the Ravens, that's going to be a close game. It's hard to say that and believe it, but I definitely believe it's going to be a close game whenever those two meet. And it's really going to be the deciding factor. And that game's really going to be basically who is the king of their division. So,
Yeah, that'll be a big one. We're going to go to commercial break one more time, come back with MLB picks for the MLB playoffs.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop, come on, take me higher.
MLB playoffs is here. The first game is already underway. We're a little behind. It started about an hour ago. The update for you guys who are not watching or listening to us. Thank you, by the way, for choosing us over MLB playoffs. I don't know if I would do the same. The game is Tigers 3, Astros 0 in the middle of the fourth. We're going to talk just a little bit of what we can expect from these series and then who we think is going to come out of it for both sides. Obviously, next week we'll be able to closer to the finish line. We'll be able to give you a little more detail on each team. But for this week, we're going to start with the AL. We've got Tigers versus Astros as the first game in the wild card. Obviously, Tigers are already up, right? But the thing about the wild card, right? They switched it to a 3-game series. All of them are going to be at Houston. That does make a difference. As much as teams don't want to play a factor, it does make a difference when all games are at Houston.
absolutely.
So they got to win. You got to win 2 either side. I think Astros probably lose this game, but still pull it out. Now, the hard thing to say is the Tigers are hot. They finished the year. They weren't even in the playoffs. They pushed their way back into the playoffs since the All-Star break, and they're rolling into the playoffs on hot steams. They have a great pitcher who's one of the best in the game right now, going for Cy Young. I just think the drop-off after that is too big for me to say the Astros won't take advantage.
Yeah. As we know, Astros have always been a good team. It's hard to bet against them to lose. So I do see Astros pull this one out. I mean, honestly, even though it's 3-0 now, they could pull it out today, just depending on if they could get the bats going. But I also don't see them losing 2 games in a row. So it's just hard for me to see that unless they have some significant injuries. So, yeah.
Yeah, Skubal is, I mean, like we said for the Tigers, is one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in the AL. He's one of the best pitchers in the league, though. So that's going to be tough for them to come back from this one. But like you said, that drop-off is pretty significant in starting pitching after that one, especially since the Tigers kind of sold at the trade deadline. And now they kind of figure out how they can win that next game and just move on. Because if they can win in 2, I mean, that changes the whole thing. You get a break. You could probably put Skubal in the first game versus the Guardians. And it's a divisional game, which means you kind of know the Guardians already. It's going to be a huge advantage. But we're going to move on to this second wild card matchup for this AL, Royals versus Orioles. The Royals struggled, the opposite of the Tigers. They struggled coming into this year. They finished at one point, we're like 2-8 in the last 10. I think they've won the last couple, so it's probably 5-5 close to there in the last 10. But what we're seeing is a lot of star power for the Royals. Vinny Pasquantino's back, which is a huge part. His energy when he was gone was obviously noticeable. That's when they went on the downhill. Now that he's back, that probably makes a difference. I think the Royals pulled out. I am a Royals fan, a little biased there. I think the Royals win the first one, drop the second one, and Lugo pulls it in the third game. But what about you?
I also have the Royals in this one. I am not a Royals fan. I'm a Cardinals fan. But got to root for the second home team. But the Royals, they've been on a good stretch lately, just to be able to maintain that playoff spot. And I think Bobby Wood's going to go to that next level for the playoff series, which is really going to help them. And like you were saying with the guy coming back, that energy, that high level energy is going to be great for them. And even though they are away, I feel like those Royal fans are going to travel well. We can see with the Chiefs fans travel very well. So I feel like it's going to be the same with the Royals. So even though it's an away series, it's still going to feel like home for them. So
Yeah, I mean, we saw the Royals struggle on the road this year. That's the biggest key part. They have their home record versus their away record was not even close to the same, way above 500 and maybe a little below 500 on the road. So the Royals got to figure out how to win in an adversity crowd, and especially in a playoff atmosphere. It's going to be even more extreme version of like you're not at home, everybody's cheering against you, the crowd's against you. The energy is just different. And for a Royals team who probably hasn't experienced that much, they're going to have to catch on pretty fast. Now they have veterans and guys like Salvador Perez, Adam Frazier, who was on the Orioles last year, who's going to be able to help these guys kind of lead. Like, this is what playoffs expect. But they're going to have to make that jump. Like you said, Bobby Witt is going to have to be that guy. There's a reason he's in the MVP voting. He's, to my opinion, the best player. But between him and Judge, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But for the Orioles, they have Adley Rutschman, big piece. Gunnar Henderson, big piece. I just don't think after Corbin Burns, there's another great starter for them. I think the Royals' 3 starting pitchers will outplay the Orioles' 3 starting pitchers if it goes to 3. And that's the biggest difference when we see it in the playoffs. Yes, scoring matters, but starting pitchers are the key for any MLB playoffs game.
Absolutely.
So we're going to go to who we pick for the AL coming into the World Series. I want to pick the Royals. I really do. And for this show, I will pick the Royals. So, I can't go against my own team.
As I said earlier, I'm not a Royals fan. I'm a Cardinals fan, but I'm picking the Royals. Like I said earlier, I think Bobby was just going to take it to that next level, and with the energy going up, and just the way that Kansas City fans travel, I think it's going to be a home game at an away field. So,
all right, we go to the NL to finish the show here. Yesterday the first game was one of the craziest baseball games we've seen in a long time between the Mets and Braves.
Yeah.
They both sneak in, which is kind of what we all expected coming into it. When you have a playoff game the next day, if you win the first game, you're probably not going to play a whole lot of your starters like the Mets did. You don't really need to, and there's no point in risking injury. I mean, you want to be able to be healthy for that next series. So they come into it, Mets and Brewers. Starts at 4:30 Central, 5:30 p.m. They have Milwaukee as a -150 for this series. The Mets, since coming off a 22-33 starting in the record, have been the best team with a 65% win percentage since that point. The Mets are on fire. We'll say that. They won the game versus the Braves, but it's been evident that the bats are still hot. The pitching still is going well. Obviously, you can't expect to give up 6 or 7 runs to get the Braves to probably win this series. But I think that the Mets take game 1 just off the momentum itself, and the Brewers probably take the series.
Yeah. I'm going with the Braves, or not the Braves. I'm going with the Mets for game 1. Like you said, they're still rolling hot. But yeah, the Brewers are just overall the better baseball team right now, even though the Mets are hot. They're facing a very sound Brewers team who can get the bats working really well, and they can get them working early. So,
yeah. And then next series, the Braves versus Padres. Similar situation, right? Atlanta has to travel on 1 day notice to come in and play an 8:30 game versus the Padres. The Braves super beat up. Like we saw at the beginning of the year, we didn't know if they were going to make it in general with Acuna out and some of these big pieces. And I think it's going to finally catch up to them. Congrats on making the playoffs. That was an amazing push to even get in with all your stars hurt. But the Padres, being a 4 seed is disrespectful for the Padres. They're the number 3 team in this NL. They're going to probably win 2-0 in my opinion.
Yeah. As you were saying, the Braves coming in beat up. I just don't see them being able to keep up with the Braves or with the Padres. So yeah, I also have the Padres winning this one.
All right, our picks for the NL. I'm going to take the Phillies. I know the Dodgers, #1 seed, by far the most payroll in the league, and especially in the NL. But I think the Phillies' consistent batting order, when you have guys who can do, anybody can do it in that lineup, 9 guys with Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, and the whole list goes on. And their starting pitchers is so deep. It's going to be hard for me to imagine the Phillies, big stars don't show up and then make them at least get to a push to the World Series.
I'm going Dodgers with this one. I mean, you saw what Shohei did to finish the season. So I think he just continues that, and he may even excel to that extra level or that next level to just kind of help them sweep through and win that NL division. And Mookie Betts, you can never go wrong with him. He's consistent, just like Shohei. So yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us for this episode of Balls and Bowties. Stay tuned because coming up, NBA, NHL, MLB playoffs is still going the way. NFL will be full swing. College football play. I mean, it's all coming to a start right now. This is like the peak time for any sports fan, fanatic, whatever you want to call yourself.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for next week. We'll probably be covering at least a little bit of NBA, kind of what our predictions are for the season. And then maybe we throw in an NHL game or two. Next week's first game is October 8th, which is a week from today. So we thank you guys for joining us. Like we said, my name is Frankie.
My name is Julian.
And we hope you guys have